She was not born into freedom, happiness, or safety. She was born into slavery. From childhood, her life was shaped by the sound of chains, the voice of angry masters, and the fear of being sold away. She did not wake up to a normal day like other children. She woke up to work, punishment, and orders. Her parents, Harriet Green and Ben Ross, had several children. Over the years, many of them were taken and sold to other states. At that time, being sold was worse than death. Families never met again. Harriet watched this happen as a child and lived with the fear that one day she would also disappear from the people she loved. When Harriet was still young, her owners rented her to different families. One family asked her to watch a baby. If the baby cried, Harriet would be hit. She was just a child herself. She would rock the baby and sing, hoping the baby wouldn't wake up. But when the baby cried, she would get punished again. Later, she worked setting traps in the woods, carrying heavy loads, and doing outdoor labor that exhausted her tiny body. Around age 12 or 13, something happened that changed her forever. A slave tried to run away, and a white overseer tried to stop him. Harriet stood between them, trying to protect the runaway man. The overseer threw a heavy iron weight, not at her, but at the fleeing slave. It hit Harriet directly in the head. She collapsed unconscious, bleeding, almost dead. That injury changed her permanently. She began to suffer painful headaches, dizziness, and sleeping spells where she would suddenly fall into deep sleep. But it also changed her spiritually. Harriet began having visions and dreams she believed were messages from God. After recovering, Harriet became stronger and more determined. She watched enslaved people being insulted, beaten, and traded like objects. She saw her sisters disappear and never come back, sold into distant states. She made a promise to herself. One day, she would be free. Years passed. Harriet worked long days in the fields beside men, cutting wood, carrying heavy loads, walking barefoot through mud, working in freezing weather. She built strong muscles, learned forest paths, and became an expert at reading nature, sounds that others ignored, she noticed. In 1849, Harriet learned that she was about to be sold. That meant separation forever from her family. That night she made her decision. She would escape. Most slaves escaped alone, but Harriet had courage beyond others. She followed the North Star because slaves had no maps. She walked by night, hiding by day. She slept in fields, under trees, and inside barns. Some homes along the way gave water, food, or a place to hide. Not everyone helped her. Some people would capture runaways for money. But others risked their lives to protect her. Eventually, after weeks of walking, she crossed into Pennsylvania. It was the first moment in her life where nobody could order her, beat her, or sell her. She later said, "When I crossed that line, I felt like I had been lifted into paradise." For the first time, she felt like a human being. But Harriet was unique. Most escaped slaves never risked their freedom again. Harriet looked around at her new life and thought, "My family is still suffering." Freedom meant little when her parents and siblings were still trapped. So, she made a decision that almost no one else ever made. She went back. But returning to the South was not simple. Slave catchers were everywhere. They had horses, dogs, and guns. Even worse, newspapers offered rewards for capturing Harriet. Posters said she was a medium-sized black woman, around 5 feet tall, scar on her head, wearing simple clothes. But Harriet was smarter than those descriptions. She changed how she dressed, sometimes wearing men's clothing, sometimes a head wrap, sometimes carrying chickens, so she looked like a worker. Harriet used signals, songs, codes, hand gestures, to communicate secretly. Sometimes she sang a simple melody, but changed the rhythm. That meant danger was close. Sometimes she told people to pray, and that meant prepare to leave tonight. Harriet made at least 13 trips into slave states. Each trip was life-threatening. She guided people through forests, swamps, and rivers. They walked barefoot through mud so dogs couldn't track them. They slept in barns or underground hiding spaces. They moved only at night. Harriet knew that if one person got scared and turned back, the entire group could be discovered. So she carried a gun, not to hurt anyone, but to force frightened people to continue. If someone said, "I want to return," she would say, "You can't go back. You go forward, or you die. On one journey, Harriet had to take her 3 brothers. Her brothers wanted to turn back because they were afraid of getting caught. Harriet pointed the gun and said, "You go free, or you die right here." They continued, and eventually became free. Harriet was not only brave, she had strategy. She never used the same route twice. When slave catchers posted guards at major roads, she led her group through marshes instead. If a house was unsafe, she went around it. If danger came near, she prayed silently and waited until her visions told her which direction to go. Many people later said she had a supernatural instinct. Harriet also rescued her elderly parents. They could barely walk, but she found wagons, hid them under blankets, and brought them north. She moved them step by step, hiding at safe houses. When they reached Canada, they cried with joy because they never believed freedom would be theirs. Even when winter came, Harriet continued her missions. Groups walked through freezing temperatures. Their clothes were thin. Their feet cracked open. Some lost toenails walking on ice. Food was scarce. But Harriet never let anyone be left behind. She fed hungry children first and often stayed awake while others slept. By the end of her Underground Railroad work, Harriet directly freed about 70 enslaved men, women, and children. But indirectly, through her routes and instructions, she helped hundreds escape. Her bravery became known even outside the United States. Abolitionists, people who fought to end slavery, raised money for her missions. She traveled and gave speeches, even though she never learned how to read or write. When the Civil War began in 1861, Harriet joined the Union Army. She worked as a nurse and cook, treating wounded soldiers. Later, she worked as a spy. She organized secret missions into Confederate territories. One of her largest accomplishments was leading soldiers during the Combahee River Raid, where more than 700 enslaved people were freed in a single night. Imagine, one woman who had once been a slave now helping free hundreds at once. After the war ended, slavery legally ended, but life was still difficult. Harriet spent her later years helping elderly former slaves. She opened a home in New York for aging people who could not take care of themselves. When she had no money, she still shared her food. She gave everything she had until her final years. Harriet Tubman died in 1913 from complications related to the same head injury she suffered as a child. She was nearly 90 years old. Her final words reportedly were, "I go to prepare a place for you." Harriet's story is powerful because she did what almost no one would have done. She escaped slavery, and then voluntarily walked back into danger again and again. She risked death every time. She could have lived comfortably, quietly, safely. But she believed freedom meant nothing if she was free alone. She wanted her people free too. Harriet Tubman is remembered today as one of the greatest American heroes. Not because she was wealthy, not because she was educated, not because she was famous, but because she took the hardest road, repeatedly, for the sake of others. Her life teaches one of the strongest lessons in history. Bravery is not running when danger comes. Bravery is going back when others are still trapped. Harriet Tubman was not born into freedom. She was born into slavery around 1822 in Maryland, and from her earliest memories, she understood suffering. She saw her parents beaten. She saw her sisters taken away and sold to strangers far away, never to return. She herself was rented out to different owners when she was still just a young child. Her job was to look after babies, clean houses, and trap animals in the woods. If she did anything wrong, or even if a baby woke up crying, she would be beaten for it. When Harriet was still young, she experienced an event that changed her life forever. A slave owner was trying to stop another slave from running away. Harriet tried to stop the situation, and the owner threw a heavy metal weight. It missed the runaway slave, but hit Harriet directly in the head. She fell unconscious and almost died. For the rest of her life, she suffered sudden sleeping spells. She would be awake one moment and fall asleep the next. But that injury, instead of making her weaker, gave her something new: visions, dreams, moments she believed were messages from God guiding her life. As Harriet grew older, she started thinking about freedom seriously. She wanted her own life. She was tired of being treated like property, bought, sold, punished, and separated from family. She knew escape was risky. People who ran were chased by armed hunters. Dogs were sent after them, and if they were caught, they might be whipped or killed. But Harriet made her decision. In 1849, she ran away. She traveled only at night. She walked alone through forests, slept in fields, and looked for special signs, lanterns in houses, particular quilt patterns hanging outside, the North Star in the sky. After weeks of traveling, she finally crossed into Pennsylvania. There, she breathed free air for the first time in her life. She later said, "I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. The sun, the wind, everything felt different. I was free." But Harriet did not stop there. Most people who escaped slavery stayed away forever, making sure they were never caught again. Harriet did the opposite. She risked her life by going back to the South again and again. Why? Because her family was still enslaved. Her friends were still enslaved. Her people were still enslaved. Harriet began working with a secret group known as the Underground Railroad. Not a real railroad, but a network of safe houses, brave families, hidden routes, and secret signals. Homes that helped runaway slaves were called stations. People who guided them were called conductors, and Harriet became the most successful conductor of them all. Harriet returned to Maryland many times, at least 13 trips. Each time, she guided groups of slaves north. Sometimes only one person, sometimes 10 or more. They moved only at night, following rivers, swamps, forests, and stars. Harriet never allowed anyone to turn back. She knew that if one person was caught, the whole group could be discovered. She told them clearly, "You go free or you die." She carried a gun, not to harm anyone else, but to remind frightened people that they must not go back. Harriet learned which homes were safe. Some families kept secret hiding spaces inside walls or under barns. Others used lanterns, quilts, or certain words to signal that the house was safe. If danger came, Harriet would change the route, hide under leaves, pray silently, or walk through freezing rivers to avoid trackers. Slave catchers often posted rewards to capture her. Her posters described her, but not accurately. As a result, she traveled safely because she changed how she looked, using scarves, hats, dresses, or pretending to be someone else. Over the years, Harriet rescued close to 70 people directly, including her brothers, parents, nieces, nephews, and strangers she had never met before. But through her directions, advice, and planning, she helped hundreds more escape. One night, Harriet helped her elderly parents escape. They were weak, slow, and very tired. Harriet hid them in wagons, barns, and finally brought them to Canada, where slavery had already been abolished. When they crossed the border, her parents cried, thanking God and thanking Harriet for risking everything. During the Civil War, Harriet's work continued, but now she was not escaping. She was fighting. She joined the Union Army as a nurse, cook, and spy. She helped organize intelligence missions behind Confederate lines. She guided soldiers through dangerous swamp routes they never knew existed. In one mission called the Combahee River Raid, Harriet helped lead an operation that freed 700 enslaved people in a single night. Her knowledge of Southern land and secret travel routes made her essential. After the war ended and slavery was officially abolished, Harriet still did not rest. She raised money for poor African American families. She took care of her parents. She opened a home for elderly black men and women who had no place to live. Even when she struggled financially herself, she gave everything she could to others. Harriet Tubman lived until 1913 and died at nearly 90 years old. In her final years, she suffered pain from her old head injury, yet she still prayed with others, sang spiritual songs, and encouraged people to keep fighting for equality. Harriet Tubman's story is powerful, not just because she escaped slavery, but because she returned to free others when she didn't have to. She could have stayed safe. She could have lived quietly in the North. Instead, she risked capture, injury, and death more than a dozen times. She became a symbol of courage, determination, sacrifice, and leadership. She changed history, not by being a soldier, not by being wealthy, and not by being famous, but by being willing to go back into danger when everyone else would have run away. She is remembered today as the Moses of her people, Because just like Moses in the Bible, she led others out of bondage into freedom. And her legacy still lives today, not just in books or monuments, but in the belief she taught through her actions. No matter what someone is born into, they have the power to change their life and help others rise with them.